What if one African leader tried to change the entire global financial system? Not with war, not with politics, but with gold. In the early 2000s, one man proposed something radical: a single African currency backed by gold. Designed to free Africa from the grip of Western financial institutions, his name was Muammar Gaddafi. But soon after this idea gained momentum, his country descended into chaos. In 2011, he was captured and killed during the Libyan civil war. Many believe the story was about democracy and human rights. But others believe something far bigger was at stake. Was Gaddafi removed because of a dangerous political regime, or because he challenged the global economic system? Today, we explore the real story behind the African gold dinar. To understand this story, we first need to understand the man. Muammar Gaddafi came to power in 1969 after overthrowing Libya's monarchy. He ruled Libya for more than 4 decades. During his rule, Libya became one of the most unique countries in Africa. The country had free education, free healthcare, subsidized housing, very low fuel prices, and one of the highest living standards in Africa at the time. Libya was also rich in oil, making it one of the wealthiest countries on the continent. But Gaddafi's ambitions were never limited to Libya. He saw himself as a champion of African unity. He invested billions into African development and strongly supported the African Union. But one idea would make him especially controversial, an idea that could have changed the global economy. For decades, most global trade has been dominated by Western currencies, especially the US dollar and the euro. African nations, even when trading with each other, often rely on foreign currencies. But Gaddafi believed Africa could break free from this system. His proposal was bold: single African currency backed by gold. This currency was known as the Gold Dinar. Instead of printing paper money with no real backing, the currency would be supported by actual gold reserves, and Libya had plenty of it. By 2011, Libya reportedly held over 140 tons of gold. That made the idea possible. If implemented, African nations could trade oil, minerals, and resources using the gold dinar instead of Western currencies. This could dramatically reduce dependence on global financial institutions. And that's when things started to get complicated. To understand why the gold dinar scared many global powers, we need to look at how the global financial system works. Today, many countries rely on institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These institutions often provide loans to developing countries. But those loans usually come with conditions: economic reforms, currency policies, trade agreements. Gaddafi wanted Africa to create its own financial institutions instead. He proposed 3 major projects: an African Central Bank, an African Monetary Fund, and the gold-backed African currency. These institutions would give African nations more control over their economic future. And for the first time, Africa could trade its vast natural resources on its own terms. But such a shift would threaten the global financial balance, especially if African oil began trading outside the US dollar. In 2011, protests erupted across parts of the Arab world during the Arab Spring. Libya was one of the countries affected. Protests quickly escalated into armed conflict. Soon, a coalition of Western countries launched a military intervention led by the NATO. The operation was presented as a mission to protect civilians. But the bombing campaign rapidly weakened the Libyan government. Within months, Libya's government collapsed. And in October 2011, Gaddafi was captured and killed. Libya would never be the same again. After the fall of Gaddafi, Libya entered a long period of instability. Multiple factions began competing for power. The country split between rival governments and militias. Oil production fluctuated. Violence increased. The country that once had one of Africa's highest living standards fell into crisis. But what happened to the gold dinar idea? Disappeared. The African Central Bank proposal stalled. The currency plan vanished. And the continent continued relying heavily on external financial systems. Even today, historians debate the true reasons behind Gaddafi's fall. Some argue the intervention was necessary to stop authoritarian rule. Others believe economic factors played a much larger role. Was the gold dinar really a threat to global financial systems? Or was it simply an ambitious idea that never had a chance to succeed? What we do know is this: Gaddafi's vision sparked a conversation that still exists today. Should Africa create stronger economic unity? Should African nations trade more with each other? And should the continent rely less on foreign currencies? These questions remain unanswered, but they are more relevant today than ever. The story of Muammar Gaddafi is complex. To some, he was a dictator. To others, he was a revolutionary leader who challenged global systems. But one thing is certain: his plan for a gold-backed African currency remains one of the most fascinating what-if moments in modern African history. What would Africa look like today if the gold dinar had become reality? Would the continent have more economic independence? Or would the idea have collapsed under political pressure? We may never know. But the conversation about Africa controlling its own financial future is far from over. If you enjoy learning about African history, untold stories, and powerful facts about the continent, make sure you subscribe to Fast African Facts, because Africa's history is deeper, richer, and more powerful than most people realize. And here, we tell the stories the world often overlooks. Subscribe now and join us as we uncover more hidden truths about Africa.